Let's bring in our panel, Doug Holtz-Eakin, former director of the Congressional Budget Office, and Robert Wolf, former economic advisor to President Obama and a Fox News contributor. Great panel to react to what we just heard, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. Bidenomics, he defined it as building the economy from the middle out and the bottom up, Robert Wolf, by making, quote, smart investments in America, educating and empowering American workers to grow the middle class. He says he didn't come up with the name when he was answering to our own Jillian Turner earlier. If I could play out this sound, this is really important. This was Jillian Turner, and she put the question to the president earlier today. Listen.
So, sir, you said you didn't know what the hell Bidenomics is. Sir, can you tell us today what it is?
Sure it is, because the first time I heard it used was by you guys in the press.
Your economics team is calling it Bidenomics.
No, wait, let's get it straight. First time it was used in the Wall Street Journal. Okay? I don't go around beating my chest Bidenomics. So the press started calling it Bidenomics. I like it. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine, because it is my policy.
So, of course, I picked up the phone and called Jerry Baker, editor-at-large of the Wall Street Journal, and asked, what was your intention of the use of that word? He said it was to describe massive government overreach and spending on green initiatives and beyond, and taking taxpayer money to push their own agenda while using taxes and regulation to stifle others. Basically, Robert, it's picking winners and losers and not allowing the free market to work. That was the use of the term Bidenomics. Your reaction to what you heard?
I thought it was a great speech, and I agree with a lot of the legislative actions that are moving forward. I mean, this morning I spoke to a family from Arkansas, and he was telling me about how important the high-speed internet process is going to be to him. It's going to improve his education with his kids that he was missing during COVID, and it's going to bring new job opportunities for him that a lot of the people in rural America aren't seeing. So one, there's a lot of great things here. We've increased 800,000 in manufacturing jobs. We have infrastructure, which you and I have been talking about for a very long time. I represented the Obama administration talking in front of the Senate. Infrastructure is one of the fastest growing multipliers of GDP and wages. And we finally have it. And there's over 35,000 projects ready to go, not just highways, but we're talking about next generation GPS. We're talking about national electric grids. We're talking about EV battery plants. So there's a lot of great things going on, and now we have to execute. I don't think he was spiking the football. I was saying, I think there's wind in his back, and we have to execute.
Well, I think he was touting what he says is already working under this administration. And by the way,
the labor's working, inflation's coming down, but these are new legislative victories that we're in the middle of starting.
All right, Doug, I want to get you in here because a recent survey showed that 57% of Americans say they're living paycheck to paycheck in this country right now. Consumer prices, you've seen the cold, hard data that is out there. Consumer prices up 15% under this president. Inflation rate up 4% year over year. We're mounting credit card debt. It's up 30% under this president. Existing home sales are plummeting. They're down 34%. New home sales down 15%. Is the American public going to buy what we just heard?
Well, so far they're not. I mean, he's got 1 in 3 Americans who approves his handling of the economy. I mean, he inherited an economy that was growing at 6.3%. It's now growing at 1.3%. He inherited an economy that had 1.4% inflation rate. It hit 40-year highs and is still at something like 5.2% for food, energy, and shelter, which is what people spend their money on. And the only people who have prospered are the favored classes that he highlighted in his speech. They get the government program that he designed to make sure they got their money. If you went out and just tried to earn your money, you had a tough couple of years. Now they have some new programs that they're, talk about their hopes and dreams. That'd be great. But anytime they try to defend them, the numbers don't add up. And I don't want to echo what Bret Baier said about fact-checking the speech. This claim of deficit reduction earned the president a bottomless Pinocchio from the fact-checkers at the Washington Post. It is just not true. The claims about job growth. Anyone can have a lot of jobs growth that come and be president in the aftermath of losing 20 million jobs in a month, which is what happened in April of 2020. So there is nothing about the legislative record that suggests a guarantee of success in the future, and there's nothing about what's happened so far that should make you very optimistic.
And by the way, not just a disconnect with the American public, there's a strong disconnect with the leaders of these major U.S. corporations, Robert. This is the latest Conference Board survey shows that CEO optimism is down, and it is way down. 93% of CEOs are still reporting that they are preparing for a recession, a U.S. recession over the next 12 to 18 months. 55%, more than half of those CEOs, are still reporting general economic conditions that are worse than they were 6 months ago. Yet the president's still saying this about a recession. Listen.
I've been hearing every month it's going to be a recession next month. The consensus is 2/3 of the economists and the major leaders in the banks think we're not going to have a recession. I don't think we will either, but I tell you one thing. In addition to the prices that go into counting what a recession constitutes, we're bringing down prices across the board for people. That's what I'm going to be talking about today.
Robert, there's a major disconnect happening out there. Is the president listening?
No, I think the president's right. There is no recession. We've had incredible strong data. And yes, there's some CEOs that think we're slowing down and going to recession. There's an equal amount that's starting to grow. And so I would look at retail sales, look at recent housing, look at unemployment, look at the labor market. And I just need to respond to Douglas. I have a lot of respect for him.
Okay.
But yes, we saw millions of jobs lost in 2008. It took a Democratic president to grow that by over 10 million job gains. We saw 10 million jobs lost during the last president, another Republican. It took a Democratic president to flip that. Listen, voters have the right to choose. They've chose Democrats after every one of these down cycles. We'll see what happens in 2024. All
right,
but I think Bidenomics is going to have wind at their back.
Doug, go ahead.
So my question for you, Bob, is, he said we've had 40 years of trickle-down economics. How do you feel having your 8 years labeled trickle-down economics? He was vice president for those 8 years.
Listen,
why weren't they different?
As you know, I was a Reagan Democrat. In the 1980s, I was a fan of Reaganomics but that's when taxes were 70% being moved to 50%. We're totally different today. Trickle-down economics has not worked in decades, but it's different than the 80s.
The rhetoric's incoherent because the policies are incoherent. These are not. These are not.
I just want to make sure that
I
want to make sure we finish off with a couple more facts here. You mentioned housing. Look at housing. Existing home sales are plunging. They're down 34% under this presidency. New home sales down 15%. They're taking a major hit, Robert. I don't have to explain this to you because interest rates are having to go so high to tackle the inflation that the American public blames on government spending under this president. I don't have to tell you that I know that. And I'll finish off with this. Crude oil prices. We drew up our brain room request this morning. Crude prices up 27% under this presidency. Heating oil. This is killing people in the Northeast. It's up 47%, Robert. These commodity prices, food prices, feeder cattle up 77%. This is what people are feeling. And so the question is how the administration can go on not acknowledging that. Real quick, final.
Listen, absolutely. Inflation hits people each and every day. I have been saying all along, inflation has a long tail, but it's coming down. I'm not saying we actually should carry a trophy around, but we're in the right trajectory. And of course, we have to get wages better than inflation. Okay.
Well, we're just questioning things like the economic policies under this president are very popular. We heard from his deputy press secretary in the briefing room yesterday. His Council of Economic Advisors says families are doing much better on many metrics than they were pre-pandemic. That can certainly be challenged. We appreciate the debate. Thanks to both of you. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Robert.